a very weird session. There was a lot of weird vibes going on, partly because it's Christmas time at the moment as time of recording, so that means that there's a lot of Christmas parties. We're playing in a pub and it was packed, really packed, and at first we couldn't even get the normal table that we sit on. Eventually we were able to get it, but there were a lot of other people in the room with us, which I've said before in previous videos, it always kind of I don't know, I always find it difficult to relax and just kind of go with the flow of the role playing when that happens. That's my thing to deal with. But no, I think maybe some of this party atmosphere rubbed off on us a little bit as well, because yeah, there was a lot of drinking and we were just very silly. Let's put it that way. The conversations devolved quite quickly into some very weird places. So as a result, I think my recap's going to be quite simple because, well, we didn't actually have a battle map for the most part, so I can't really show you the usual sorts of visuals that I put on the screen, but also because for the most part what we were doing was quite straightforward. If you recall, at the end of the last session, we'd kind of finished everything on the 6th floor of the Dungeon of the Mad Mage, and we were kind of looking for the stairs to go to the next floor. And we've been told by the dead body of this dwarf the general direction we needed to head in. And so we were going that way. And this session was basically, the first half of the session was essentially find the stairs, which is always a fun activity in Dungeon of the Mad Mage. There were a few interesting things that happened. So for example, as we first left the chamber that we were in, straight away we all had to roll wisdom saves. And for a split second, anyone that passed that wisdom save, for a split second, they heard a voice in their head talking to them, basically like going, hello, can you hear me? I finally got through to you, oh my gosh, and then the message kind of cut off. And apparently it was the same voice, although none of our characters know this. This was a kind of metagamey, this is for the players to know. It was the same voice as the one that we heard when we first went down from the 1st floor to the 2nd floor. Basically, it was a female voice, and she was basically saying, dare you take on the challenge of the Dungeon of the Mad Mage? It was something like this. So it was like throwing down the gauntlet to us, giving us this challenge in the first place. Unfortunately, everybody that was in the party at that time is now dead, including Gorn, who was the only character left from session 1. But during that brief period of time, he was unconscious. So none of us actually heard that voice before. So as far as our characters are concerned, it's a completely new voice. Lovely. And all of us were very kind of confused by this, didn't really know what it meant. But then we kind of moved on. We were, as I say, we were heading southeast in the direction of the servants' quarters, which I think is where we were told the stairs were. And very quickly, Gorn, being a dwarf, noticed that there were a few statues and other, I guess, iconography of the god Dumathoin. Now, he already knew, because we've had this all the way through this dungeon. Dumathoin is quite a prominent god in this place. The king of the mountain, whose residence we're currently in on this level, was obviously a worshipper of this god, and he followed him. And so yes, his iconography is everywhere, but this Dumathoin statue is a little bit different, and with basically a natural 20 in a religion check, it's not Dumathoin at all. It's actually the god Abathor, pretending, cosplaying as Dumathoin. Very interesting. Now, I spoke last session about those 3 forces of book, player, and DM, and how they're often pulling in different directions. And I think, in case anyone's confused why I was kind of making that analogy, is because previously I've only ever played like homebrew stuff. And in homebrew stuff, really you only have 2 forces, because you don't have the book pre-written. So it's literally just players and DM, and the DM is the one coming up with the campaign on the fly, constantly basically ad-libbing and creating the story as they go. Of course, they've got certain events and things that they kind of planned, and they've got, I don't know, maps and modules and ideas of where they want things to go, but essentially they have complete free reign to just zag to the player's zig, and the 2 of them kind of just working, you know, like counter melody style, just working through the story together. And it's a very different vibe when you're playing in a pre-written module. Watch last week's video for all of that. I gave my thoughts there. But the point I will add on this is that this feels like an addition that is not in the book. This feels like a DM special where he has basically gone, one of my characters in his backstory used to follow Abathor, got a bit of baggage there. I'll take that and I will just knock it on, appendage style, to the side of the book. It feels like that. I would be very surprised if I had somehow by accident added something to my backstory that's already in the module without even reading it. I'd be delighted, but I have a feeling this is a DM special adding on, but it makes sense, it works. And basically the way that Gorn and the party are understanding it is that it looks as though, even though the king back in the day of this civilization worshipped Dúmathoin, he had within his ranks certain people who secretly worshipped Abathor. Of course, the god of greed. They were greedily taking things and stashing them away. And my understanding, thanks to my history, is that it almost like understanding thieves' cant when it comes to Abathor. It's like, apparently, if a statue is facing in one direction, then he's normally got his back to the direction you should be looking in to find loot and things like this. So it's like a little like inner circle bit of knowledge that like to find the loot, be like the stuff we've stolen is here. And so we followed that, and indeed we found ourselves. We basically, it was only a slight detour, but we basically followed the trail of breadcrumbs left to us by these historical followers of Abathor. And we basically found ourselves in a room with another archway, and there were two Duergar, and they were trying to basically escape. They were the same ones that we'd seen earlier in the main chamber. And this archway, it had like an image on it. All of the archways have some sort of symbols on them. This one was of like a hand touching it. And so I have Mage Hand, and so my character cast Mage Hand and touched the archway. And for the first time in this campaign, an archway sprung into life. This portal appears there, which the DM was very nice in telling us, this goes to the 11th floor. You are not ready for this. But the Duergar were, and one of them went straight through. Oh dear, disintegrate spell, and he is utterly destroyed. And then there's the other Duergar left. And he's hesitating because he doesn't want to be in the room with us, and he's thinking he'll go through this portal as well, but he's just seen his friend get disintegrated. And apparently in this moment, he hears a voice in his head telling him not to go through, that he's not strong enough. And so he's hesitating. He's like, oh, what do I do? And just to mess with him, two members in the party both know the spell message, and so they also messaged him. And so it was basically a big old convince off of like, do it, jump into the portal. No, you can't, you're not strong enough. And so he eventually jumped into the portal, and he made it to the other side. It's apparently the disintegrate spell was a one and done thing. We were thinking of going through. We heard the same voice in our head then saying, no, you're not strong enough, don't go through. Okay, fine. Obviously that's the DM speaking to us. But interestingly, in this room, there were some musical instruments. One of the musical instruments was like a tuba, and the tuba was missing its mouthpiece. Luckily for us, we'd already found a mouthpiece for a tuba in a room a while back, which had statues to various gods in it. Didn't have a statue to Dúmathoin though. I noticed that at the time. And so we took this mouthpiece, put it onto the tuba. The Mama Leota in our party, she cast silence on the doorways to make sure that no one would hear us playing these instruments, because there are still Umberhulks on this floor that don't like loud noises. And we played the instrument. And lo and behold, basically a wall cracked open, and inside there was a bunch of loot. So that was nice. What sort of loot was there? Quite a lot, I'll tell you. There was a silver figurine of an ox worth 25 gold, a pewter flagon with amethyst for eyes worth 250 gold. There was a trapezoidal mirror for 25 gold, a mithril bell for 25 gold, a leather eye patch with a bloodstone in it for 50 gold, and so on and so on and so on. Very nice. Put it in the bag of holding. After this, we then went on our way and we found ourselves in my favorite room in the dungeon, the toilets. Yes, we found ourselves in the toilets. The one level which is completely abandoned and in which nobody lives is the one level on which there is working plumbing. That's dwarven ingenuity for you right there. You know, we should go up to the Xanathar's Guild and the Drow on the floors above and be like, hey, you guys need to find somewhere? Don't just go in the corner anymore. A couple of floors down, you get a whole cubicle to yourself. It's lovely. So anyway, yeah, so it was a bunch of cubicles, and basically we were just exploring, and Mama Leota went into one of the cubicles, and there was an invisible thing in there. And immediately you roll initiative. It turns out that it was a grey slard that had cast invisibility on itself. We had a big old fight. I was tempted. I really, really wanted, because Gorm was actually in another of the cubicles. So as soon as I saw the toilets, I was like, Gorm goes to the toilet. And so Gorm was in the toilet, and I really, really wanted on my turn on the initiative, because I came quite low on the initiative order. And I was like, as soon as it comes around to me, this is going to be great. What I will do is I'm just going to throw myself at the walls of the cubicle, smash it down on top of the slard, like pin him in place. It'd be like, I don't know, like some horror movie or something. I thought it'd be quite funny. But the DM was like, no, sorry, these cubicles are made of stone. That's not going to happen. They are load-bearing walls on these cubicles, you know? Fine. So I go out of the cubicle, and then we start attacking, and I pull Mama Leota out of the way. I actually use my entire action in one turn, because I'm not a battle master. I don't have this ability to like bait and switch or something. So I have to use my whole action to pull Mama Leota out of the way. She's an old lady. She's not built for combat. So I pull her out of the way, put myself in exchange, and then I'm kind of blocking the entrance to the cubicle. The others can kind of hit from a distance, and I'm just there just to kind of tank the hits. And that worked really well. We took down the grey slard, and then we kind of moved on. Question was, though, what was that grey slard doing here? Well, wouldn't it be lovely if we could ask it? So we do. We decide to cast Speaks with Dead on the slard, which apparently can speak common now. Who'd have known it? But there we go. We asked the slard who was it hiding from, and he told us the loud duergar with picks. We asked him, why were you hiding? And he said that he was lost. He was trying to stay alive. He doesn't belong here. We asked him, where does he belong? He told us that he came through the archway. Aha, we know that archway. We just saw it. We said, what was on the other side of that archway? He said the drow and the trolls are causing mischief with the one who owns the caverns. And so the final question, of course, from that was, well, who owns the caverns? And the answer to that was the lightning bearer. Very efficient Speaks with Dead spell there. I like it. I like it when that happens. So then we went away with this knowledge. We went through to another room, and there was a room with 2 archways. And once again, my character Gorn was able to figure out that this is another puzzle, another symbol left behind by followers of Abathur. Basically saying more loot down this way. And at this stage, I got to be honest, Gorm was feeling a bit conflicted, and he brought this up with the party because he was saying, like, listen, like, I used to I fell in with a bad crowd at one point. I was kind of following Abathur, or I was following people who followed Abathur. I've got a bad relationship with them. I don't stand for what they stand for. And of course, surely if we are following these symbols to get the loot, are we not ourselves falling prey of the exact same inclinations towards greed which almost destroyed me in my past? And the answer was like, oh yes, you're probably right. We shouldn't be too greedy. Basically, you stay here, Gorn, and don't be greedy. We'll be greedy for you, was basically the answer. So I was like, fine, I'll come and help you, because I can read these signs, but you know, like we'll check out one more room and then we'll head down to the next floor. So we went on a little bit further. There was like a garbage room with like some levers that like crushed the walls and lifted. It was quite cool. We went through to another place, which was basically like a shower block with like a sauna next door, with a very angry fire elemental trapped inside. And after a little while, I found the stash where there was more stuff stashed away in the shower cubicle. We found 2 sardonyx, we found 2 zircon, we found 1 amethyst, we found 2 garnets, a spinel, a tourmaline, and a diamond. Basically 1,000 gold pieces worth of stuff right there. There's nothing to spend it on, but our bag of holding is full of stuff. Believe me, I've got a big long inventory. I'm going to go through that item by item the next time we find a shop. There won't be anything to buy. There's never anything to buy in shops. And finally, we kind of went down to the next level. We found the stairs and we went down. It was another tunnel that had been dug by an Umber Hulk. That's a bit worrying, so that tells us there's probably more Umber Hulks on the floor down. We went down, we took the opportunity to do a bit of role play. I basically asked Mama Leota, why are you with us? Like, where did you come from? How did you end up here? What's your deal? She was being quite evasive, partly because the player hasn't fully written his backstory yet, so he's being a little bit evasive. But yeah, I then twigged. I was like, hang on a second. From some of her answers, it was quite obvious that she's a drow. You know, she's quite misogynistic. And I was like, hang on a second. You're a woman and a drow. We're all men, and we're not drow or elves of any kind. Do you think in this dynamic, do you think you're in charge here? And she's like, well, yeah, of course I am. Who's the one casting Speaks with Dead and all these people? Who's the one like figuring out directions and things? Like, okay, all right. To be continued on this one. I'm not going to push it for now, but she is not in charge. You do not get to join us in session 15 and take control of a group. No. We are a democracy here, people. Yeah, so anyway, so we continued on down. We already know that this next floor contains giants, and we know that it contains the Mage Killer. So we very quickly saw evidence of giants. I should say the floor, this new floor that we're on is much more like natural cave again. It's not dwarven ruins anymore. It's just like natural caverns and caves and things. Weird geography to this place. I've got to be honest, whoever wrote Chris Perkins, you're a very good dungeon writer, but I would encourage you to visit actual cave systems and actual underground ruins in the world. They exist, right? It doesn't work this way in reality. I know that's a really weird thing to say, but I do like a little bit of like common sense and logic in things. Like, cave systems are carved by water over millions and millions of years, you know? There's no water on this level. A couple of floors above, yes, there was like an underground river. Okay, it kind of makes sense. Not anymore. Is it all Umber Hulks that carved this place? I don't know, it's a bit weird. But anyway, we kind of just, we lampshade it and then we move on, right? So yeah, we found evidence of these giants straight away. We found like there was like a gym, like a workout area. We found a whole bunch of bears, like a family of bears that was like just guarding this area. One of the people in the party, of course, our barbarian, is a Goliath, and so he's kind of half giant, I guess, and the bears were not exactly friendly towards him, but they weren't hostile. And so from this we kind of understood like, you know, maybe these bears are here almost like pets, kind of guarding this place. We did actually get into combat with the bears for a while. We were playing very silly, but Gorn wild shaped into a bear himself, pretended to take the side of the bears, and we were able to kind of de-escalate that action, which is good because the mama bear and the papa bear were guarding 2 little baby bears, and I did not want to orphan 2 little baby bears. So we moved on. We found ourselves in a very large, like dome-like chamber, which weirdly had this big spire in the middle of the chamber, and there's like a castle on top of it. And there was like a narrow channel around the kind of outside of the room that we could kind of go around. Down inside this large bowl-like, it's like a large bowl-like room, and down in the middle of it, there were two giants who were kind of searching or looking through some rocks. And we were kind of stealthily going past them. One of these giants, it's very dark in this room. The DM was pointing this out to us. It's very, very dark, right? Our Goliath, he doesn't have dark vision. So he can't see the giants down there. And yet, as soon as the DM said to us, one of the giants is really, really buff. He's really cut. He's like got huge muscles. He's clearly the one that's been using that gym back there to work out. He is like stacked. And our Goliath, despite the fact we're being stealthy, like I say, Christmas parties, drink, we're all being a bit silly, he just calls out to the giant, "Do you want to go on a date?" Which is really hard to justify, because yeah, he's not exactly the sharpest tool in the shed, this Goliath of ours, but he can't even see this giant. It is pitch black in this room. We've literally just said, "Shh, there's giants down there. One of them looks really muscled." And he's gone, "Do you want to go out on a date?" Our party, ladies and gentlemen. And so, yeah, as an immediate response, this massive, heavy-set giant picks up one of the rocks that he was kind of sorting through and just hurls it at the Goliath's head, smacking him, crushing him into the wall. And that was the end of the session. So, yeah, very strange session. As I say, we didn't really make a lot of progress because it was really just a case of us mopping up on the floor above and finding a bit of loot, coming down the stairs, a little bit of role play, and then us just kind of finding a bit of the lay of the land down here as well. I think next session is going to be a bit more involved, because now we've got the giants to deal with. Presumably there's going to be combat, or us stepping down from combat. There's going to be us figuring out what's going on down here. What's the deal with that castle on the spire there? Where is the mage killer? All of these things, very important questions. But for now, all we really managed to do, let's be honest now, all we actually managed to do was start a fight with some cave bears that we ended up not going through with, and then getting a rock lobbed at our heads by a very buff giant. Not the most successful of days, but yeah, that's all for this session. See you next time.